Hi everybody, welcome back to the Horn Hangouts. It's a really special Horn Hangout here. We are at Paxman's in London, and I know Alexander's, we had to call them and say, is it okay if we go to Paxman's? And they said it's absolutely fine, and they were happy we were here. So just to clear that up in case anybody was wondering. We're at Paxman's, we're very grateful to them. They've shut the shop actually for the afternoon and for tomorrow when the LSO horn section will be here. And yeah, if you hear some traffic noise, it's because we're actually on the lower level and the cars and taxis are going right above our heads up here. So just so that you know, welcome from all over the world. Once again, you're watching from America, from Australia, from Lithuania, from Germany. It's fantastic. From New York. Thanks for joining in. It was fun having you all there for the masterclass yesterday. So enough talk. I would like to welcome, it's a very, very special privilege for me today to have one of my absolute horn legends. He's not going to like this because he doesn't like it when we make any sort of compliments, but I don't mind because today I'm just going to compliment him. Tony Halstead is one of my horn heroes. We have a really long history together. You've been very important to me. Welcome to the Horn Hangouts, Tony Halstead.
Thank you for inviting me, Sarah.
I can hear applause going on all over the world.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you. You and I met, I'm not going to say how many years ago, but do you remember?
I remember meeting you at the Claremont Chamber Music course in Esher.
Run by Marion Friend.
Marion Friend,
Our
yes,
friend
yes.
Marion Friend. In case you're watching, Marion, we love you.
You're an inspirational lady. And you were playing beautifully the Brahms trio.
I'd only think I just started. Was I playing on that huge great big horn?
Huge, great Vincent Bach horn. I remember that very clearly.
I do too.
And straight away, I thought, this young lady is going to go places.
Oh, well, let's get back onto you. Thank you for that. But I remember you came and you sat down at the piano and you showed the pianist how to play it.
Oh, I didn't show.
No, but
I just made a few suggestions, that's all.
Not many horn players can do that. Anyway, since then we met and you became very important to me, and that you were the reason I went to the Guildhall to study with you, and then you abandoned me.
I did not.
You did. You moved to the hand horn.
Oh yes, well, but then you played the hand horn,
That's
and
right.
you played it extremely well.
I don't know about that.
No, I didn't abandon. Let's be clear. I want to make it clear that I didn't give up all my modern horn students lightly. I became very conscious at that time. I was moving inexorably into the natural horn field, and I had severe self-doubts as to whether what I was teaching on the modern horn was relevant anymore. That's what it was. And let's say the last 5 or 6 years that I taught at the Guildhall, I did concentrate on the natural horn.
That's right, I remember. I was still very sad because, you were my hero, you still are my hero. But anyway, we've known each other for a very long time.
Yes.
It's lovely to have this chance to chat. But let's start, because everyone knows who you are, but there's not that much information about you online. There's not that many interviews. So let's just do a little brief, this Tony Halstead, this is your life. You went to Chetham's School of Music.
Yeah, Manchester.
And you studied the horn and piano though as well there.
Didn't really study the horn.
He didn't really study the horn.
No, I played the horn in school orchestra. I played a pea shooter, French style piston horn with a crook, and I had one lesson when I was about 12 from the music master, who was very multi-talented, who gave me a fingering chart, told me how to spit a note out, and that was just over to me. When I left the Chetham's, I got into the College of Music in Manchester, what was then the Royal Manchester, is now the Royal Northern. I got in as a pianist, not as a horn player. I was a second study horn player for the first year. And then I was so shocked and disillusioned by my inability to play the piano as well as I wanted to. I then decided, oh well, I'd better be a horn player because there aren't so many people playing horn. So that kind of changed my life.
But you've kept the piano up.
Very much.
Very much.
I think actually I'm busier as a pianist now and harpsichordist than I am as a horn player. But that's my choice.
And after studies, you decided you're going to be a horn player. You went to the States?
No, actually, I didn't.
How did you meet Myron?
I met Myron Bloom at one or two concerts which I attended in London and in Edinburgh at the festival when the Cleveland Orchestra were on tour. I also was inspired by his playing on the various recordings with George Sarah.
I thought you went to study with him.
Well, I did study with him, but I studied with him after he'd left Cleveland. Okay. I went to Paris because he played with Daniel Barenboim in Paris Orchestra, and I went there on an irregular basis. I mean, it wasn't formal study.
But he influenced you a lot.
He influenced me a lot. Yes. But before I met Myron, I'd already decided that what I heard of my own sound on the radio, because I was in the BBC Scottish Orchestra then as the principal horn, I didn't like the tone I was making on my Alexander horn. And a dear friend of mine, Martin Shillito, the late, sadly, of the LSO, said to me, Tony, you need to get away from the Alexander, you need a large horn. He said, I've got one for sale, it's Con 8D. So I bought it from him, and that was my regular day-to-day horn for about, well, it has been for the last 50 years now.
Your first job was the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, fourth horn.
Yes,
Yay!
yes, Bournemouth.
That's great.
I only stayed there 3 months.
But that's why your low range is so good to this day.
Well, I've always been, dare I say it, I think I'm a natural low player who's always worked and actually, dare I say it, struggled to play high. You know, I'm not a natural high player. I just work very, very hard. But I've always been happier playing low parts, I have to say.
Me
that.
too.
Yeah, I know.
Me too. If you should have a look online, there's a fantastic recording of Tony playing Fat Belly Blues, and if that's not a mean low horn player, I don't know what is. It's a fantastic recording. So you don't like it when I compliment you. You go.
You're very kind.
You're very complimenting. You really are.
Thank you.
But we'll get back to business.
Okay.
So Con 8D, Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, but you soon made the jump from fourth horn, I don't know, promotion, demotion, fourth horn to solo horn to principal horn.
Yeah, that was in the BBC Scottish Orchestra.
Why did you do that if you felt more comfortable playing low horn?
Because my teacher in Manchester, Sidney Coulston, just said to me, I remember he always said that the first very meaningful telling thing he said to me in my first few lessons, he had a very broad northern accent, and after he heard me play for 2-3 lessons, he said, Tony, the trouble with you is your tone is too tubby. So your tone is too tubby. And so he was always trying to get me to slim out my sound. And when I had slimmed it out to the extent that he wanted me to, he then said to me, there's a job going in the BBC Scottish Orchestra. Farkas and Cousins, legendary Farkas and Cousins, was still first horn then. He said, you ought to go for that job. I think you might have a chance of getting it. So I did the audition. They gave me a week's trial. And then
A week's trial?
A week. Yes, I know.
Better than
that
in the
sounds
Berlin
horrendous
Phil.
to somebody in Germany.
2 years we get.
A week's trial. And then they offered me the job. So I stayed there. I rapidly had to learn how to play high notes, which I couldn't. And after 3 years there, it was kind of time to move from Glasgow to London. So
you came to the LSO?
And I joined the LSO and I stayed there for 3 years.
We have actually a couple of pictures. Tim is there's no room in Paxman's to set anything up because it's quite a small space here. So Tim is squatting in the corner. We'll have to take a picture of that and and prove it to you later. So Tim, we have a couple of photos of Tony as principal horn of the LSO. Incredible job, and tomorrow we have all the members of the LSO coming and a special guest coming to tell us about the history, which I'm sure you can imagine who that is.
I think I know. I saw him last week. Yes,
we'll keep it as a surprise until tomorrow.
Okay.
But how long were you there at the LSO?
LSO, just a little bit more than 3 years.
So did you feel happy as a principal horn in a big symphony orchestra?
I felt happy that I was in an extraordinarily brilliant orchestra. That was a privilege. But if I was unhappy, well, let's say I became unhappy in the last year I was there because I became very strongly aware that physically I don't think, although I love the repertoire, I love the Rachmaninoff, the Walton, the Vaughan Williams, the stuff that Andre Previn did so brilliantly, I just felt increasingly that physically I was not suited to that style of playing.
Was that you worrying too much?
I think maybe it was, yes. And when Jeff Bryant joined the orchestra as co-principal horn, and I used to bump him up, I used to think, well, he's just a much more accomplished symphony orchestra horn player than I am. And I thought, well, I ought to leave this orchestra and do something which I think I can do, hope I can do, better than I'm doing now. So as soon as I left the LSO, within about 2 weeks, I joined the English Chamber Orchestra and stayed there for nearly 15 years, 15 years. And that's where I think it was like my life changed, and I became aware of the whole chamber orchestra repertoire, particularly the brilliant Haydn symphonies, which I love to this day, and I love conducting them as well. In fact, that's my next big project in June at the English Haydn Festival, conducting Haydn and other classical pieces. But the ECO allowed me to find my feet, and they also let me play harpsichord in some Baroque music. And
you were the ECO, conducted, played the horn, played the harpsichord, but you did feel a lot. I remember I'd met you by then, and you did feel really a lot more comfortable, you told me.
In that repertoire.
In that repertoire.
And chamber music.
But some people would say that repertoire is much more open, much more fragile. And I remember these Haydn symphonies, there's the recordings of you with the ECO playing these, what are they, the later Haydn symphonies?
Well,
the really
ECO,
high ones.
Yes, I think for me, the recordings that I've enjoyed most, I mean, ECO was wonderful, but when I moved away into the natural horn world, it was my association with the English concert, period instruments, and the Academy of Ancient Music, and the Hanover Band. Those three orchestras, where it became very crystal clear to me that using high crooks on the natural horn actually slimmed down the texture. No longer were the horns having to play softer. You didn't see the conductor's hand going up like this. You know,
really?
The dreaded thing. Really? Simply playing an A crook, a G crook. You didn't have to, because the sound is so much slimmer using the natural horn, the smaller bell. So it's immediately...
It wasn't too tubby.
No, too tubby, no. So the horn fits in using the natural horn. And, you know, I hate to say it, but playing a Mozart or Haydn symphony on a B-flat alto or A crook is actually easier than playing it on the second valve of a large double horn.
We played this thing with Simon Rattle recently. He made this sort of pasticcio from all sorts of Haydn things. And one of them, Stefan Dor and I thought we were going to have a nice, easy time because it was B flat and it was no problem. And we got to the first rehearsal and Simon said, horns up there.
Alto.
And it ruined our week because it was really high, and we were saying exactly that. We were finding it very hard to blend in on our horns.
On your modern double horns,
you know, and Simon doesn't do that very often,
no.
but you could tell he wanted to.
What do you remember? What was that particular piece?
Something he put together all these. He's made this arrangement. I'll find out for you.
Because if it was one of Haydn's London symphonies, it
was something that we'd never heard of.
Right.
It's on the digital console. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, maybe you can write in. There was this Haydn pasticcio, and
I'd be interested.
It was a tough thing, especially for a poor little low horn player. Tony, before we get onto your move onto the natural horn, I have a few questions because I love to involve our audience. We have some really. Sometimes I'll just fire them at you. Ollie Johnson, who is a horn player at the Guildhall, who came to our class yesterday. Guildhall, that's right, Joel, isn't it? He says, what exercise did you practice to learn to play high? Did you relate playing to whistling or something?
Yes, whistling that's very, very good, Ollie. Extremely intelligent remark. When you reach the point when you can't really. I hate to use the phrase tense your lips up, because I firmly believe that everything around the lips should become firmer and firmer. But if you start getting too tense in the lips, then the lip stops vibrating. I won't digress for a moment, but you ought to read The Hanging Lip by Fred Fox, which is a brilliant article. He talks about the hanging lip and being free to vibrate. Okay, coming back to the point. There comes a point when you can't become more tense in the musculature. At that point, you start to use the whistle technique. So, using the position of the tongue in the mouth, you're compressing the airstream, you're making the air go faster in a natural way. And I'm not saying, hey, presto, easy, but it's a way to work on getting higher notes out than you thought were possible. That's
fantastic.
So thank you for asking that question.
No, thank you for that. Hang on, sorry, I've got a mini iPad today. Jill Williams, a friend of ours in Magdeburg, I was just telling you about her, Australian horn player, just got principal horn. Well done, Jill.
Congratulations.
How important do you think it is for young hornists today to learn early instruments and also the hand horn technique on a modern instrument? Very, very good question. We'll get on to the hand horn more in a minute, but I love that question.
Yeah. Can we spread that a bit wider and make it not just young players? It's important, I think, for any horn player to spend a period of study, months, years. Although I don't really play the natural horn professionally anymore, I'm still a student of it. Anyway, come back to Jill. It's important in that I can swear on the Bible that I've never had a student, either a young player or an advanced player, professional player, never had a player who's not been, double negative. I've always had players who have improved, students who have improved in their modern playing as a result of devoting time to study on the natural horn. I mean, it's all over to you, it's over to your lips. And hand technique, While we're still in the modern world, one of the, apart from Baron Blue, one of the most inspirational figures in my life as a player was Barry Tuckwell, sitting next to Barry.
In the LSO?
Very often. Well, no, not in the LSO, because
was
by the time I left the LSO, Barry had left. When I joined the LSO, it was David Gray was the first horn. I was co-principal. When David left, I became principal, and then Jeff Bryant joined. Okay, Barry I think he still plays, used more hand technique on the modern horn than any horn player I've ever played with. I mean, it was a great privilege for me to sit occasionally and play second horn to Barry in the London Sinfonietta. And obviously you don't glare at somebody like that, but just out peripheral vision, just seeing what he was doing with his hand, shading the sound all the time, I found that really fascinating.
I think it's so important. I always say the hand is such an important tool.
Incredible, yeah.
And to have learned from you how to play the notes and how it used to be has really helped being a second horn player and being able to adjust it that's in split seconds. It also helps your hand position, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because if you have an odd hand position on the modern horn, you can't play the natural horn.
Not at
You
all.
have to.
No. And there's something else that maybe young players don't realise. And I'm not blaming teachers for this, but there is an area of high register on the modern horn which does not come into focus unless your hand is correctly placed in the bell. And the usual, the fault, most often, is that the fingertips are not far enough up the bell throat. As soon as you find that magic spot where you feel your fingertips tingling, at that point you've got access to some higher harmonics than you think you can get.
How far up would that be?
Contextual.
I knew that would come in the question.
Contextual, yes.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
It's very hard to say. But years ago, the late American musical physicist Art Benaid wrote a book in which he mentions finding the correct hand position. You can actually feel, if you play even the middle note, C above middle C, there comes a point if you start to gradually slide the hand into the bell where you feel that tingling in your fingertips, and that is the spot where the hand will perform its functions most efficiently.
It's also such a natural thing, as you see people doing this and people doing this and people doing this. It's actually, you put your hand in the bell.
You've got it.
I learned it from you.
No.
I learned it from you.
He would say that, wouldn't he?
No, it's really because, and also to learn the natural horn. I didn't play it for very long, but my natural horn is in the horn room at the Philharmonie, and it's used by everybody in Berlin who has to play the Britain, or you have to use it in the orchestra. Everyone always wants to borrow my Tony Chidell, Halstead Webb horn.
John Webb, the late John Webb.
Halstead Chidell
yes.
mouthpieces. Oh, did he pass one?
John Webb passed away last.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, in 2014 he did, and I went to his funeral, which was as happy an affair as funerals can be. And John Willis, who played some of his trumpets, John came and played the movement of the Hummel, and I accompanied him on the electric piano.
How lovely. I'm honoured to have, it was one of the first horns I think you built, the one I have.
Yours was one of the early ones, with a hand-hammered bell.
Yes, and that huge, great big
big
case
box,
out.
the big wooden box, yeah.
Anyway, Tracy asked, did Anthony play the Con 8D in the LSO? You did, didn't you?
Oh, indeed. Oh, yes.
You did, didn't you?
Yes.
So let me just see. These are refreshed. There we go. Gosh, everyone's being very, very. It's further than they love it. It's going on really. Great question. When did you realize, from Thomas Schampert, when did you realize you were a low horn player and focus your efforts on that rather than trying for high instead? Well, you actually. I don't quite understand that. You were a low horn player. You felt comfortable, but you had to work very hard at being a high horn player.
It became very clear to me during my second year at music college that I didn't really have a very natural embouchure for high register. I had an enormous amount of upper lip in the mouthpiece. I think even to this day, rather than 1/3, the classic 1/3, 2/3 proportion of mouthpiece, I've probably got 4/5, 1/5. Which is probably not enough. I think if I could...
That's very untextbook, isn't it?
I think if I'd managed to get 3/4 top, quarter bottom, probably I would have had a better high register.
Now we're on the mouthpiece question always comes. What sort of mouthpiece do you play on? But it's more than just a question for you, because you and Tony Chidell, you developed the set of screw room. Were you the first people with the screw room?
No, actually. the so-called PHC Paxman Halstead Jadell, which has now been rechristened Professional Horn Components.
Oh.
That's true. Anyway, let's stay with this. When Tony and I were in the LSO together, Tony was my second horn, and we had got a bit fed up with having Giardinelli screw mouthpieces gouged out and widened, because we felt that they were great mouthpieces, but for both of us, we felt that we wanted more.
Sorry about that. Guys, these are motorbikes going out here. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we used to tweak, modify, customise Giardinelli mouthpieces so that they had a wider internal diameter. The widest Giardinelli that was available in the early 1970s was 18 millimetres inside, and we wanted something a bit bigger. And so we got to the point where we couldn't carve out any more from a Giardinelli mouthpiece, and we, in collaboration with Paxman and some very skillful engineers, we came out with initially a range of only 2 rims and 2 cups, which eventually expanded, and those had an 18.5 internal diameter. Didn't suit all players. They weren't claimed to be the universal be-all and end-all. They were specifically aimed at players who wanted larger inside diameters than we could get from Giardinelli's. That's all.
And the rims you had a select, because I remember starting off on one that I felt was like pretty much a tuba rim, and we went down from that. I did play on one for a while.
Yes.
Did you have various rims? How does it work now? What is available now?
Oh, now about 2,000 different combinations. Right. I mean, I don't off the top of my head. I no longer, since about 5 years ago, I no longer have a business involvement with PHC mouthpieces, but I take an interest in how they're still developing.
Did they take off when you developed them?
Oh yes, very much. But they only took off when we brought out an alternative range called the A range, which were more conventional inside diameter. For example, the A range mouthpiece, all the A range rims are 17.5. Now, most of the normal size Paxman mouthpieces, 4B, 4C, are roughly that size.
Yeah.
No, 17.5. Getting very technical, this isn't
it? But we're getting back onto the story, but I promise you that everybody watching loves it. It was something that I wanted to ask anyway.
Thank you.
Because it's important to have this information out there, because a lot of people watching they can't come into Paxman's and try the mouthpieces.
Well, no, my latest information on the health of PHC mouthpieces from only a week ago, from the machine shop that makes them on the south coast of the UK, is that they are still available. And there's been a rumour flying around in the last month or so that PHC mouthpieces are not available anymore. Oh. And that is actually not true.
Good.
Because you can still get them. Every single model is still available.
You have heard that on the Horn Hangouts. You can order your mouthpieces if you want.
The
rumours are not true.
That's right.
Tony, let's go back to you. You made the change, the move into the ECO.
Yep.
And how did this evolve, this absolute passion about the natural horn? Because nowadays we have the Hanover Band, we have the Age of Enlightenment, everybody's doing it.
Yes.
But in those days, nobody was doing it, as far as I know. How did that evolve?
Okay, well, to be absolutely honest, in the middle 1980s, I became very aware that some of my colleagues were playing the natural horn extremely well. Tim Brown, Michael Thompson, and I used to work with those guys, and I thought, well, I'd like to do that as well. So let me just make one thing straight. I'm not a pioneer. I mean, the most life-changing natural horn recording I ever heard was the pioneering Hermann Baumann of the 4 Mozart's Concerto with the Nicholas Arnoncourt and the Vienna Concertos Musicos. Just superb natural horn playing, lyrical, beautiful. And I just thought, I want to play like that. And so I started messing around, converting piston horns and stuff like that. When Paxman brought out their first natural horn in 1982, I think I bought the second one. I think Mike Thompson had the first one. I bought number 2. And
you still have it?
No, I don't have it, I'm afraid. It wore out. I used it so much. That's the one I used for my first recording of the Mozart concertos with the Hanover Band and my recording of the Weber Horn Concertino.
Your Mozart concertos, we have a photo of you recording the Mozart horn concertos on your natural horn, 1987?
Yes, my goodness.
Yeah, well.
Oh, you've got your facts right.
We sometimes do too. Have you got that photo somewhere? Is it going up? Fantastic.
Wearing a red jumper.
Wearing a red jumper and looking terribly serious. It was almost a Hoffnung cartoon look. You know you were doing this.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. May I just say for the record, you're going to squirm again. These are for me the ultimate Mozart horn concerto recordings. They have been my guide. Yeah, I'm not just.
But I did them better with Chris Hogwood and the Academy of Ancient Music in 1993.
Well, you did your recordings of the Mozart, your interpretation of the Mozart. You did them maybe for you better. Both of these recordings. It's how you play. I mean, you changed the cadenza a little bit in the Hogwood recordings, but I actually preferred those. I like those ones.
Oh,
they were quite daring ones.
Thank you.
But really, if any of you haven't heard these natural horn recordings, actually, can you still get both?
I'm not sure if you can still get the one, the Hanover Band on the Nimbus label. Certainly, you can get the ones with the late lamented Chris Hogwood and the Academy of Ancient Music, but that's on Decca.
Any horn students who have not, any horn players, any viola players, or whoever are watching, if you haven't heard these, please go and listen to them because they are stunning. And what I love about your hand horn technique, Tony, is you don't go wah, 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 wah. You don't play hand horn like that. You don't play the stop notes as if they're only for effect sometimes when they need to be. Why?
Well, that's very perceptive of you. You know, funny enough, what you just said, that's what I tried to do, and yet I've been criticised for not punching out the stop notes enough, for not drawing attention to them. It's such a contextual thing, Sarah, that when the lyrical line would be interrupted by a pungent stop note, what natural horn players try to do is to disguise that, to play the stop note a little softer, make a slightly more open hand position, at the same time lip down. The more open your hand position is, the sharper it's going to be. So you make your hand more open, you lip that note down, and then if you go too far, you crack it. But there are instances where you've got to exaggerate the stop notes. For example, that dramatic moment in the slow movement of Mozart, of K447. I won't call it number 3, although it is number 3. You know, all the numbering's been revised, and what we think of as number 1 is really number 4, etc. So, bum, 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 bum. It's got to be like that, because it's a tense harmonic moment. Look at what the orchestra's doing. You've got an E flat in the bass, you've got a chord of E major, or it's not notated E major, it's not notated F flat major with the E flat in the bass. It's got to be tense. I think by razzing that stop note, you're enhancing the tension of that.
Well, is there a sforzando written on there?
Yeah,
so that's probably what Mozart intended. But
of course,
not everybody who plays the natural horn thinks like that. They like to stop everything that is a full stop, and I love that way of playing.
I don't like.
I mean, your way of playing.
Thank you very much.
But that is something very important to learn, because I learned from you to play like that with sort of. I remember your circles and your half crosses,
squares.
I still have them on my Mozart parts.
Nice, that's sweet.
And that actually made that's why it's called hand technique.
Of course.
Isn't it? Because if it wasn't, hand technique would be open or stopped.
It's so many shades of grey in it. I mean, it's I really don't have to say I don't like hearing what I call black and white hand horn playing. It doesn't do anything for me.
Well, the other thing I've always wondered, I never got a chance to ask you, how on earth did you play the Weber concertino like that on a hand horn with all those incredibly fast notes? That is a legendary recording.
Goodness me.
Has anybody ever tried to do that?
Oh, Hector MacDonald has done it.
Has he?
Marvellous.
I'm sure it's great.
Hector did it. And he did all the repeats and the variations, which I didn't think I had the strength for. But it's...
These days you could have just repeated what you've recorded and then cut it in there.
Yeah, maybe. No, I mean, I will tell you, when I prepared that piece, I remember it was the autumn of 1986, I did the most concentrated 3-month practice I've ever done in my life. I had a kind of psychological block about the Weber concertino, because when I was studying at college with Sidney Coulston in Manchester, I learnt off the Otto Lange tutor for quite a lot of the time. And I used to appear in the back of the Lange. Yes, the Lange tutor.
I've never even seen that. Is it still available?
Probably still is in a reprint.
Links,
anyway,
please, everybody, links.
The Lange tutor. So you appear in the back of the tutor and you see Andante Ronda by Riesager or something like that, and nobody plays it anymore, but it's a nice piece. And then you come to the Weber concertino. So I said to Mr. Coulston, Sydney, one day, I'd like to play this piece. "Hey, lad, don't do that," he said. I said, "Why not?" He said, "Dennis Brain wouldn't play that piece."
You really wouldn't?
I mean, I don't know. Dennis must have played it, but Sydney was convinced that Dennis never played that piece. So I thought, well, that's it. I'll never play that piece. And then years and years later, when the manager of the Hanover Band said to me on the phone, can you play the Weber concertino? And I said, no. And he said, could you learn to play the Weber concertino? So I said, I'll let you know in a few days. So I started practicing it, and I spent 3 months of my life playing that, nothing else but that piece every day. And there was no recording planned. It was for a concert in London, Smith Square. So we did the concert, and I kind of got through it. And then 2 days later, we were recording the Weber the symphonies, Symphony 1, Symphony 2, and the recording team realised that Symphony 1, Symphony 2 are not really long enough to make a CD. I think there's no Abu Hassan, which only lasts about 3 minutes. So they said to me on the second day of recording, would you like to record the Weber concertino? So fortunately, I had the E crook with me, although that repertoire doesn't need the E crook. So they said, we've got 2 hours to do it. We can start now. So we started, and I said, well, I'm not going to be able to do the legendary Nimbus philosophy of one continuous take. You're going to have to edit, guys. And they said, all right, so be it. So, and I did have 7 attempts at the high E, which is off my range at the end. And I think 2 out of the 7 were usable. So thank goodness they used one of those.
So it's just I mean, these days you know a year in advance if you're doing recording.
Yeah.
They just told you on the day before. By the way, you're on.
Well, it was on the morning. It was on the Sunday morning at 10:30. The recording session was due to start at 11. So they said we're going to record from 11 till 1. You're either going to get it in the can or not. So we just did it.
It's good thing you had the music.
Well, the orchestra still had the music as well, yes. Anyway.
And the crook.
So,
incredible. Get this recording, guys. This is really absolutely incredible.
But the chords are not as good as, I mean, I know personally at least 3 or 4 horn players who can do the singing partly because the people that I know, I think, have better trained singing voices than I have.
Is it true that I find it hard to sing that? Is it because it's a girl's voice, a girl's range? Is it? How does Annika do it?
Well,
on a natural
you don't sing the lower notes.
No, but it's still. I still find that very hard.
Although last week I was working with Pip Eastop, and he played one of his own compositions in which he was singing lower than the note that he played. So I don't understand that.
Pip is a force of nature. Pip is really.
I think Pip should record the Weber concertino.
Okay, Pip, if you're watching this, you've been challenged. It's a horn challenge. We're challenging you to record the Weber concertino.
Yes.
Right. You conducted Pip's
Mozart. Yes, with the Hanover Band.
With the Hanover Band.
Great fun.
Wonderful recording as well.
But his cadenzas are hair-raising. I mean,
did you write them?
No, he wrote them.
He wrote them himself. Right. Okay.
Oh.
I remember when I heard them, I thought sounds like Tony's actually.
No way. I mean, no, sorry, but kind of. I wish I had the ability to play those cadenzas that he wrote.
No,
I mean,
wonderful.
We did have a few good-natured, I wouldn't say arguments. We had discussions, a frank and free sharing of views about the cadenzas.
Arguments.
And Pip was remained absolutely convinced that he wanted to play them, because they grew out of his study. Some of them grew out of his study of Mozart's piano concerto cadenzas, which he wrote himself. I mean, if you look at all Mozart's piano concerto cadenzas, you see he uses diminished sevenths a lot. And Pip thought, well, why can't we make diminished sevenths work on the horn? And my goodness, he makes them work. Yeah. Not to mention the stratospheric. No, I will mention the stratospheric high registers, which are superb.
It's a wonderful recording. I've got a good question here from Thomas again. He's coming out. Thomas, you've got good questions today. You said that playing the natural horn improved the technique of many of your students, your modern horn, and elaborated on the hand horn technique. But what way is it? But in what way is it beneficial to lip or tongue technique?
Lip or tongue technique? Well,
why is it good for your horn playing? Not only the hand technique, but why?
All right. Let's do those in 2 parts. Lip technique, meaning the ability for the embouchure to focus on the pitch of the note that you want to come out of the horn. Well, to some extent, when you put down first valve, second valve on the modern horn, you're having some of the work, the hard work already done for you. You select second valve, you're going to get harmonic on the B flat horn, harmonic series of A, on the F horn, harmonic series of E. When you've got the crook, when you've got a crook in the horn, you don't have a mechanical aid. You're not constantly adjusting the resistance. What the modern horn does for us is it gives us an enormous range of different resistances, which by practice we learn how to cope with. So, you know, you switch from the first valve, you then go to valve 2 and 3, you're going from the A flat horn to the F sharp horn, much more resistance. Have you ever wondered why sometimes the C sharp has a little bubble on it? Because in the whole gamut of the B flat horn, that's the longest tube you use, 2 and 3, and the thumb valves as well. So coming back to, in other words, your lips have to make the pitch, and you get no help from the instrument at all. That's number one. Tongue technique, that's a rather subtle question. I think I can answer that by saying anybody who's ever played a Mozart symphony, say in F, and you get going nicely in the first movement and it feels nice and free on the natural, on the F crook. You then change to the slow movement, you put your C basso crook in, and you've got a written C on the page, and you go, and it goes, brr. So, in other words, the tongue technique that you require for the longer crooks, I mean C basso, B flat basso, you have to cultivate, especially if you're using a modern mouthpiece, you have to cultivate what I call a back of the mouth technique. So you're really stroking the note into place. If you use what I call full forward frontal tongue technique on the B flat basso crook, B natural basso of course, and C basso, you're going to get some split notes, crack notes, if you've not got the airspeed absolutely lined up with the speed of the tongue. But doing that back of the mouth technique, which is a sort of valid, something that cornet players do, and you can hear some marvellous leading cornet players playing with not so much frontal technique as the cornet soloists of the past. I've digressed onto cornet now, but I think the cornet has such a relation to the French horn. I just love the cornet far more than the trumpet. Oh, there we are.
Tony, we have incredible celebrities watching us today. Hi from Tim Jones, Richard Bissell, David Pyatt, Pip Eastob, Martin Owen, in the middle of a film session recording Disney film score. How about that? Hello, boys.
Wish I was there.
Thank you for watching. I hope Pip heard his shout out. Someone's just suggested we need Pip on a hangout, which is...
You do.
We do. We need actually all of these boys on a hangout.
Yeah.
We have Tim Jones on tomorrow.
Great.
And all of his section, which is great.
Good.
So go back to work, boys. Get the teas in. We're having Paxman tea. Tim, nice mugs. So, tea break. You have to drink tea in London. Isn't that funny? Don't you just love the wonders of modern technology?
Yeah.
So there was Philip Maguire is watching from Oman, saying so lovely to see Tony from afar, an inspiration to all UK players. Trevor says Nimbus recording is my favourite CD. Matthew Clifford Highslip says huge fan. I love the Pinnock Royal Fireworks music. Sounds like you had a lot of fun recording it. I mean, you've got a lot of people out there in the world that truly adore you.
That touches me.
So I'm so happy that you made the trip down here, or up here. Hang on, where do you live?
We're down.
We're down here in Paxman's, but where do you live?
I live in Dover.
Dover. So that's up. You came up.
I came up. Yes. And I had a concert this morning in Canterbury where I was playing the piano.
I was just looking at the
claret player.
Yes. How much accompanying do you do these days?
Well, more than I used to. Once again, how long's a piece of string? I'm very happy to have a go at some of the standard accompaniments for not only horn but also other wind instruments. When I was at college, I used to love accompanying mostly wind instruments, but in the last 5 or 10 years, I've tried to learn some of the piano parts of the string accompaniments. I mean, my wife Ellen is a violinist, and although she does concentrate more on the classical and baroque violin than the modern one.
You met in the
Guildhall.
In the Guildhall, that's right.
Yeah. I was her accompanist in the Guildhall. You've got an amazing memory.
Hello, Ellen. Is she watching?
Probably she can't be watching now. I think she's working today. There we are.
A big hello from all the horn students at the Birmingham Conservatoire, a great horn hangout. Robbie King wrote that in. Andre in Watford. Andre's a great horn hangout supporter. So hi to Andre. Freya Gillan, hello from Trinity. Laban Conservatoire. Tony, I'm a keen natural horn player, and I've been wondering what the best way is to start getting Baroque orchestral experience while still a student.
Orchestral experience. Oh, what a difficult question.
Because I remember the first gig you sent me to, my very first gig. It was in some cathedral somewhere. I packed my horn, got into my little Mini, drove off there, had practiced the part, and I was lost. My ear, it kept changing. It was just so difficult to hear, and even though I practiced it,
was it Baroque pitch? Was it
the
lower pitch
as well?
Semitone down.
Yeah.
Semitone down, you get used to it. The pitch that I've always found hard to cope with is that in-between pitch, which is so-called classical pitch, which is in the cracks between Baroque and modern. So A430, which actually I think is a made-up pitch. Honestly,
Who
it
made
is.
it up?
Well, at some point, when what I call the explosion of authentic performance and authentic orchestras happened in the early mid 1980s, I'm convinced that some consortium of orchestral managers, orchestral conductors, recording companies got together and thought, we've got to have a pitch now, for not for Baroque, but for Mozart and Haydn. So why don't we just settle on 430? Because certain instruments sound okay at 430. But you defy anybody to find me an original classical hand horn that comfortably plays as low as 430. Pretty well all the ones I know are quite happy at 435 and a bit higher. 430, you have to have the slide out so far that you start to get bad notes.
Oh.
So that is a little internal criticism of that. Anyway, coming back to the question.
Yeah, orchestral experience.
Orchestral experience.
Why you're a student?
Well, I'm pretty convinced these days that the various British conservatoires do have Baroque instruments. I say Baroque, in other words, the pre-hand horn, and they have hand horns as well. And do these places not have their own Baroque orchestras?
I hope so. It would be
Yeah,
lovely if they did.
That's where you could get.
Let us know,
experience.
Freya. If you
Freya.
if you let us know.
Freya Gillan. I sold her a horn.
Yeah.
I sold her a horn.
You sold her. I hope you like your horn, Freya. I hope it was really expensive.
Yeah. Hello, Freya.
But it is, one thing that I think is fantastic. I was filming with the Coldstream Guards, with the band of the Coldstream Guards last week, and they have a wonderful horn section, and one of them runs the original instruments band of the Coldstream Guards. They have an original instrument band. They play on natural horns. It's incredible. I think it's a great idea, and they get all dressed up in the uniform of the old days. It's hard enough to march with a normal French horn, which I discovered. Let alone.
I sent him an email last week.
Nick,
telling him to get a coupler so he could put his D crook into C basso. That was what it is.
But
hello, Nick, if you're watching.
Yeah, hello, Nick. I hope he is. I'll see him on Friday. I'm going back there.
Yeah.
You say you're not a pioneer, but you absolutely are. You absolutely are. This natural horn, and you've taught all the top natural horn players of today.
Not all of them. Some of them.
Roger Montgomery. Who else?
Andrew Clark,
of course.
Diaz.
Raoul. A whole list of them. They were all your pupils. I decided to stick with the modern horn because this pitch thing really, I found that very difficult. But I think it was absolutely wonderful to have this chance to learn the natural horn, and I think it's something every student, every horn player should know how to do.
I applaud that.
How can you play Beethoven 9 fourth horn solo without knowing how it would sound with the hand technique?
Yeah, that's very astute.
Astute. Oh, thank you so much. They called many things astute. John Jones has written in saying he still loves your Spore Octet, which we played for fun in Glasgow in the late 60s.
Goodness, yes, that's true, yes.
John Jones, you see, isn't it incredible what sort
Spore,
of...
that was not on the natural horn, that was on the modern.
There's people watching all over. And there's Becky Parkin is watching and wants any tips for practicing her low register, as she's a natural high horn player, so she's the opposite of what we are.
Right.
So what would you practice for your low range these days?
First of all, I'm a great believer in the jaw lowering technique, where you bend the pitch of a middle note without changing the fingering. So you start off a middle C with a strong airstream, and using the jaw, you do a yawning technique. So you're keeping your lips together. If you go too far with it, you must be careful that you don't pull your bottom lip out of the mouthpiece. But you undulate mid, do that, get that really going, a semitone undulation, factitious note. Play the Beethoven Sonata on the hand horn. And in fact, I was teaching somebody yesterday. You play the last movement, you play G, G, C, C, B. Hand doesn't do it at all. You've got to jaw it down, jaw the B down, and then you've already started practicing the mechanism for strengthening the low register. So you're using the jaw to pull the pitch down a semitone, a bit more than semitone if you can. Keep pulling down, bang, then the G, low G comes out, that's a good solid note. Then you start again on the G. You should get on the, say, the E flat crook, maybe not on the F crook. You should. Oh, we're talking about modern.
Yeah, but that's fine. That works on both, don't you think? I mean, you can practice that on the F horn anyway.
So you bend the middle C, and then miraculously, you suddenly fall. If you keep the good strong airstream going, you get the next harmonic down, which comes out as a good stable note. What's happened is that the jaw has guided the embouchure into the correct or the most efficient vibrating slot to get that low note, which you thought you couldn't get. So I just worked my way down through the semitones, doing that, working down until you've actually got the jaw taking you down much lower than you thought you could.
On your Fat Belly Blues recording, you can really see you have a real, wow, you really get down there. I find I can't, well, everyone does their own way, but...
Well, you know, that's a rather debased technique these days. Every time I open a new textbook on it, I mean, a particular one which stays in my mind is the one by Vern Reynolds, the Horn Handbook, which is a great book, in which he alleges, and I think he's correct, that the ideal should be to play as low as you can with an embouchure that looks like a high embouchure, and conversely to play as high as you can on an embouchure that looks like a low embouchure. I'm not saying you should have two embouchures. That was something that I went through. I remember in my second year at college, I said to Mr. Coulston, I want to be a low player. And he said, lad, you've got two different embouchures. You've got a high embouchure and a low embouchure. He said, play this down. He put the second horn solo from Fidelio on the stand. And I kind of went, changed the mouthpiece. And he said, right, go and practice, use your low embouchure to get high, and you'll be a low player. But don't come back here with two embouchures anymore. It doesn't work. So that taught me a lesson. So, but that pulling down the corners, I think you can carry that too far. I think you should keep all corners firm, but maybe not. I don't think I do that anymore.
Oh,
there we are.
Fascinating.
Thank
Tony,
you.
we unfortunately are out of time.
Yeah.
Sorry for all the questions we didn't get to. Tony will be getting a copy of right, there's no one there, it's just a camera.
No, okay. Yeah.
Tony will be, we'll send him a copy of the chat so he can see everyone who's written in and everyone who's said hi and asked questions. So you'll be seeing that. So write in for him, send him your hellos, tell us where you're watching from. Any selfies you can take of you where you're watching with hashtag Horn Hangout, we would love to see them. Tony, what are your plans now? I mean, I don't mean today, but
no. As I said, my next big project is to conduct 4 concerts in the lovely market town of Bridgnorth, Shropshire, where there's this fantastic festival, the English Haydn Festival, which has been going for 20 years, and I'm privileged to be able to conduct the orchestra that assembles there and doing Haydn symphonies. We're doing a couple of Beethoven symphonies as well, including number 2. So horn players start practicing now. And we're doing various concertos. We're going to do the remarkably wonderful Weber bassoon concerto with the marvellous Robert Percival playing the bassoon. I mean, I feel so lucky. I've got projects like that. I've got this horn ensemble which I was working with last week called the Tony Halstead Horn Ensemble in Cambridge, and we did 2 wonderful concerts last week with world premieres of sensationally good works by Richard Bissell.
Where do the horn players come from?
Well, some of them come from London, but mostly they're horn players from around the Cambridge area, and they're really enthusiastic and really good. And we had Pip there. We did Tim Jackson's superb Spiegelstück, which was commissioned by the horn ensemble, and we also did Richard Bissell's piece, The Magnificent Seventh, when guess what interval it's based on. So that was a superb privilege. So last week was a big week for me. Anyway, you said looking on. I just want to be able to still love music, enjoy making music. I'm not playing the horn at the moment because of a bit of a tummy thing, but I'm hoping to start paying again very soon as well.
Tony, you've given us so much, really. You've inspired so many people, and when you wrote and said you would come on the Horn Hangouts, I just cheered because it's something I wanted to. You remember we tried to set it up a couple of years ago, and it didn't work.
I was ill then. I was in hospital.
Ill.
Yeah, that's right. So, but I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me. And also thank you to the people who've asked such good, perceptive questions. And I hope I haven't obfuscated so much, too much.
I don't even know what that means.
In other words, I hope I haven't beat around the bush too much. I have tried to answer the questions well as I can.
You really have. Well, long may you carry on doing what you do, and thank you for all the inspiration. All the thanks are coming in here from Lee Alexander, also a great Hangout supporter. So I've always loved Mr. Halstead's recordings, and I see now he is a lovely man and so generous to share his knowledge. Thank you so much.
Can't you tell my wife that?
F. Horn Patrick, great hangout, thanks so much. Jeremy Rowe, great hangout, thanks so much. You will get a list of all these.
That would be nice.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much, Tony Halstead.
So,
thanks for coming on the Horn Hangouts. Bye bye, everybody. We will see you back here at Paxman's tomorrow at the same time with the horn section of the London Symphony Orchestra and a few surprises. Thanks to Joel for managing our chat. I'm taking a picture of these two. Thanks for Tim on his knees here. You have to see this to believe it. And the Paxman staff at the back, Martin and Ian. You want to come say hello? Oh, they don't want to come say hello. Come say hello tomorrow. You sure you don't want to come say hello? All right. No, they don't want to come say hello. But they're back there, and it's quite small in here, but it's very cozy. Thanks for all to you for watching, and I'm just going to give Tony a hug and say goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.